Welcome to the Next Level Facebook Ads Podcast with Phil Graham. We help you master Facebook ads and give you an unfair advantage over your competition. Are you ready? Let's go.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Next Level Facebook Ads Podcast, episode 457. I'm Phil Graham. And yes, I'm recording this on Monday, February 9th, 2026, the day after the Super Bowl. And yes, my Seattle Seahawks are Super Bowl champions. What an amazing game. I'm so glad we won. It's not easy to go to the Super Bowl, much less win it. So that's pretty exciting for a lifelong Seattle Seahawks fan like me. But today, what we're going to be talking about are the ads from the Super Bowl. And yeah, I'm going to share my favorites like I do every year. But more importantly, we're going to talk about what really matters, and that is how you guys can leverage some Super Bowl ad tactics in your Facebook and Instagram ads without a large budget, because there is so much there that you guys can use potentially in your ads. So it should be a really quick, fun episode. Now, before we get started, if you guys are looking for any help with your ads or your AI, whether that's one-on-one coaching and consulting, which I believe is the best way in the world to learn, or that could be having it run for you so you don't have to do it. For either one of those things, just go to my website, philgrahamdigital.com, or DM me on Instagram at philgrahamdigital, and let's connect. So let's jump right in. I'm going to share my 5 or 6 favorite ads from the Super Bowl, but then we're going to get right into the most important part, which is what are the tactics you can use from these ads with any kind of budget. So my favorites, number one, without a doubt, was the Lay's potato chips farm retirement ad. It made you feel something, and it also tied it to their product. I thought it was amazing. If you don't remember what that was or you didn't see it, it was about a dad who's retiring and giving the farm to his daughter so she could now run it herself. And it really pulled you in. It really made you feel something. By far, that was my favorite ad. My second favorite was the Pepsi ad. I thought it was genius because they had the Coca-Cola polar bear in their ad doing a blind taste test, and he accidentally, picked Pepsi as his favorite. And then he had to go see a psychiatrist because of it. And then towards the end, there was a Coldplay moment where he was on camera drinking Pepsi. And it was just a genius ad. I thought that was very humorous and very well done. My third favorite, which was really close between second and third, was the Budweiser ad. No, I don't drink Budweiser, but I love their ads every single year. It's always on my list. This year, they had their Clydesdale horse, and they also had a little chickie that turned into a beautiful bald eagle. It was very consistent, very on brand, and also elicited a feeling, not just about the product, but about the company as a whole. And they really went with the Made in America angle, very patriotic, especially with the bald eagle. I thought that was very well done. My next favorite was the Jesus Gets Us ad. I actually thought that was very well done. For most of the ad, I had no idea what this was going to be for, but it kept me watching. I was like, I got to see what this is. I have no clue. And if you don't remember it, they kept showing all kinds of things. It was like social media times 1,000, where you're running around like a chicken with your head cut off, trying to post on every platform and just going crazy. And then towards the end, they said there's more to life than more. And I thought that was genius messaging. I thought they did a really good job with that. And I think a lot of people can relate to that because social media can be crazy. And then my last favorite was the Bosch Appliances ad with Guy Fieri. It started with kind of a lookalike of Guy, except the plain Guy Fieri, just as a plain dude doing everyday tasks, not very well. But then he transforms into Guy Fieri and then all of a sudden does them amazing. And I just thought it was really funny and very well done. And then I will give a special mention to an ad because it was very different. It was by Coinbase. I didn't love the ad, but the thing I liked about it was that it was completely different than any and every other Super Bowl ad. It almost looked like a keynote presentation or like just CapCut captions on the screen. And that was it. So it was really weird, but I will say it was completely different than anything else. And sometimes that can be a very good thing. So that made my list. So I am curious about what your favorite ads are too, because everybody's a little bit different. Feel free if you want to share. DM me on Instagram at philgrahamdigital. I would love to hear. But let's get into the part that's the most important, the part that actually matters. Because if you're running Facebook or Instagram ads, or you plan to, you can leverage some of these tactics without a large budget. So let's jump right into it. I'm going to share 5 tactics. Number 1, emotional storytelling. Lay's did the perfect ad on that, where they're really sharing an emotional story. They're not really talking about the product or the specs of the product or anything like that, or the features. You actually felt something in that ad. Again, the dad was retiring and handing the farm down to his daughter. And then towards the end of the ad, which I thought was very smart, they connected that to their product. It wasn't just emotional storytelling that didn't have anything to do with their product. They connected it by saying that they use local family farmers to grow potatoes for their chips. And so it was a combination of being an emotional story that was amazing, but also the second part of it, they connected it to their product and their brand. If you don't connect it, it just really isn't going to mean much. But if you connect it, it's amazing. The tactic you guys could try is creating an ad that isn't just about your products and services and the features, but show the outcome that they create for your ideal audience and customers. Whether it's relief or joy or humor or success, whatever the case may be, and blend that into a story that means something and then ties back to your product or service. And that could be a way you can run an emotional storytelling type of an ad that could be really powerful. Tactic number 2 is humor. We saw this in so many Super Bowl ads. I already mentioned Pepsi, which did it so well. So yes, you can definitely use humor in your ads. I would just warn you to be very careful with this. You can pull it off and do something really nice, but also sometimes you might go over the edge and do something that people take the wrong way, or maybe it doesn't have anything to do with your actual brand or product or service. That could backfire and not be so good. So make sure you're careful with it. But what I would do and how I would use it, I would think of some humor about your industry and maybe take advantage of that and leverage it. I could certainly do that about the Facebook ad industry and the AI industry with all the get rich quick idiots out there and all the scammers. I could definitely create some things that is very humorous, showing those types of things. So think about what that might look like for you. How can you use humor about your industry to create an ad that not only is funny, but ties back to either your product or service or your brand and your beliefs? And that could be really powerful. Number 3, leveraging nostalgia and cultural references in your ads. Now, Dunkin' did this really well because they had a bunch of familiar faces of celebrities and child actors that aren't kids anymore, but from a long time ago, and cultural moments of the past. And I thought they crushed it with that. In fact, I think almost 10% of the Super Bowl ads used nostalgia and or cultural references in their ads this year. So that is something super powerful because you can tap into these cultural moments that your audience already knows about and already feels. It might be a meme, it might be a trend, it could be an industry joke or inside info in the industry or something much bigger. So how you might use that is you could create an ad and you could say something like, remember when we used to, and then talk about a time that really illustrates one of those cultural references from the past, whether it's about your industry or just broadly your ideal customers as it relates to problems you solve. You could also use flashback videos. There's a lot of different ways you can go about this. But again, this stuff can be done very inexpensively. And you could even have a small ad budget and do this. Obviously, you can do it with more as well. Number 4 is borrowed credibility. I see this every single year, and you saw it in this year's Super Bowl a ton. So many ads had different celebrities in them. Now, how do you get this without having to pay a celebrity? Well, I call it borrowed credibility. So what you could do potentially in your ads, you could make a video and you could talk about how a certain celebrity or a certain brand or a certain movement has affected how you do things as an entrepreneur or as a brand and why it affected you and how it influenced you, whether it's a book or a person or whatever the case may be. And that's almost like borrowed credibility in a way. Now, you got to be careful with this, and I'm not giving legal advice. So if you do this, make sure that you're doing it correctly and that it's illegal to do so you don't get sued. So you want to check with your lawyer before you do this. But this is a way that really can be powerful, to talk about a brand, a book, something that has changed or affected how you do business and why, And there might be a little borrowed credibility there, even if you don't necessarily state it in that way. But again, be careful with this. Check with your lawyer first. And then last but not least, create a moment, not just an ad. Almost every single Super Bowl commercial this year did that, meaning it wasn't just about the one ad. They promoted the ad before, they're promoting it now, afterwards. You know, there's a lot of different ways to do that. AI.com got you to sign up to reserve your name. There's that fear of missing out. But the bottom line is Super Bowl ads are not just the one-off ads, but entire campaigns around the ad. And so there's ways that you can leverage that. So for example, the classic way is retargeting. You come up with an amazing ad. Maybe it's an emotional storytelling ad, which is one of my favorites. And then you can come up with part 2 of that as a retargeting message just shown to the people that have watched part 1. That way it's not just a one-off ad. It continues. It's a moment that continues. There's other ways to do that too. You've got to give a reason for people to follow through. Maybe you're creating a challenge that's a week long or a month long. Maybe there's a countdown to a launch. Maybe there's a scoreboard that you're going to use to track something and you're going to share it with your audience. But you've got to do something that gets people coming back to it, whether that's you doing it or something that your audience has to do, or both. But that can be really powerful. So in summary, I hope you guys didn't just watch the Super Bowl ads and think, oh, those were funny, those were cool. Think about how you guys can use them yourself in your own life with Facebook and Instagram ads. And maybe re-listen to this if you need to, if you didn't take notes, because you can use a lot of these tactics very inexpensively and they can be really powerful. Does that mean they're guaranteed to work? Of course not. Nothing's guaranteed to work when it comes to business. These tactics are really powerful. And so I think they're definitely worth testing. And I absolutely recommend you guys figure out what that looks like for you and your brand and your ads. And as always, just a reminder, it's always important to point out that every business is unique. Results can vary. There's no guaranteed outcomes. So always keep that in mind. So my friends, episode 457 is in the books. Thank you guys so much for being here. I hope you have an amazing week. The Seahawks are Super Bowl champions. How cool is that? If you guys want to get in touch, philgrahamdigital.com is the website, or DM me on Instagram at philgrahamdigital. I'll talk to you on next week's episode. Peace out.
Thanks for listening to the Next Level Facebook Ads Podcast. Please remember to subscribe and share this with all your friends. For show notes, more tips, and to learn more about Phil, please visit philgrahamdigital.com/podcast.